So Ravens flock, Mark Andrews is set to have a big 2025. And the reason I say that is really because of one main reason that I think a lot of people are overlooking, which is as of right now, Mark Andrews is 248 yards away from becoming the all-time leader in receiving yards in the history of the Ravens franchise. Now he already is the all-time leader in touchdown receptions, but him becoming the all-time leader in receiving yards and passing Derek Mason, which as we all remember, Derek Mason came into the mix during the mid to late 2000s. He in about 4 or 5 seasons, he set that franchise record. This would obviously be a big deal for Mark's legacy, but something else that would be a big deal for Mark's legacy is him having an opportunity to redeem himself from what went wrong, not just this past season, but in previous seasons. Now, we all know that Mark Andrews is most likely going to go down as one of the greatest offensive players in the history of the Ravens franchise. Like, again, he's only 248 yards away from breaking the record for most receiving yards in franchise history, which I think that also speaks to how our team has changed over the years. On a quick side note, I think it speaks to how our team has changed over the years, right? Because we were such a run heavy team for the majority of our existence, it almost felt like a record set by Derek Mason was never going to be broken, which was kind of sad because Derek Mason's record isn't that much. It's 5,700 yards, but at the same time, we obviously have been a slightly more pass heavy team compared to previous years. And also, Mark Andrews has been one of the longest tenured pass catchers in franchise history. We've also never retained too many people, whether it's receivers or tight end. We've really never retained too many people for too long. We have retained some people, obviously. You think about people like Todd Heap, of course. But in the case of Mark Andrews, I think Mark Andrews is probably going to go down as a bigger figure offensively in Ravens history than everybody, even Todd Heap, honestly. Even really everybody. Whether you want to name Corey Smith, whether you want to name Anquan Bolden, people love Mark. And Mark has shown up many, many times. He's had 2 seasons of 800 plus yards. He's had a 700 plus yard season. He has had a 1,300 plus yard season, which, if I'm not mistaken, he set the Ravens franchise record for most receiving yards in a season. However, one issue that has come up that has become more and more noticeable is the fact that we've never gotten any production out of Mark in the playoffs. To this day, he's only had 300 receiving yards, 0 touchdowns. He's had about, I believe, 8 or 9 drops. Some of those drops have literally led to interceptions. And it's made people begin to look at Mark differently and start to say, well, maybe it's time to move on. There were many people who made videos this past offseason speculating about a trade. I didn't do that because, to me, I just didn't think it was going to happen. And I mean, it hasn't happened. So, but in the case of Mark, the way things ended it with Buffalo, it's going to be very hard for many Ravens fans to let that go. And it's not just about the fact that he had a bad game. It's also the way he handled the aftermath of that. But despite how things went left, clearly his quarterback, his head coach, his offensive coordinator, his fellow tight ends, Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar, like in general, like half of the Ravens flock, many people still believe in Mark. And Mark's still on the team, obviously. So there's still an opportunity for a redemption arc. And I guess the real question is, what would it take for a redemption arc? I don't think it's going to take that much, honestly. As far as the regular season, I don't think it matters much what Mark does in the regular season at this point, because even if he takes a back seat to Isaiah Likely, because many people believe that this year may be the year where the Ravens, push Isaiah Likely to the forefront and make him tight end 1. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't know if it's going to be more two tight end sets like we've always imagined it being because of Todd Monken's history at Georgia. But regardless of how it plays out, even if Mark ends up taking a back seat, again, he only needs 200, more or less 250 yards to become the Ravens' all-time leader in receiving yards, which that alone would be a something to celebrate throughout the season, which would really cement his legacy within the team's history and within the minds of fans. But really, the number one thing Mark can do is when we get to January, just play like Mark does in the regular season. Like, again, Mark has been a safety net for this Ravens offense for almost his entire career, essentially. And unfortunately, throughout the playoffs, it's just never clicked. I don't think it's gonna take much to click. Like if Mark just plays how he normally plays, I think he could have a bounce back playoff run, but it really just depends. I just don't want to see him get too much in his head, because when you think about some of the things that went wrong in the Buffalo Bills game, one of the main things that went wrong, of course, was that fumble. And I still can't wrap my head around what possessed him to try to juke the guy and, make that extra person miss. And I don't understand what happened there, because 99% of the time, Mark doesn't do that. Mark, he's more of that chain mover type of player. Like, he's going to catch the ball, go to the ground, and, you live to play another down. But for whatever reason, in that moment, Mark he tried to do a little too much. It backfired. This is an opportunity to learn from that. And hopefully in the playoffs next year, we can see him have some sort of progression and him actually show that he has learned from those experiences and that he has recognized that he needs to step up and reach his standard in the playoffs. So let me know, do you guys believe that Mark Andrews will have a redemption arc in not only the 2025 regular season, but also in the 2025 playoffs? Do you guys think that he's going to go on a tear next year in January? Or do you think that this may be it for him and maybe he just takes a backseat to Isaiah Likely and, that's kind of the end of it? Let me know in the comment section below.